Hey friends, and welcome back to the channel. So it's been over a decade since I healed my relationship with food and overcame an eating disorder. My 17-year-old self really went through a lot healing my relationship with food, and it took some big life lessons, I think, to really get to the point where I was like, okay, it is not worth it to micromanage my food anymore. It's not worth it to hate my body. I want to live a happy, healthy life without feeling like this is the only part of my life that matters. So I thought, what more important thing to talk about here on the channel than some of the key factors and influences and mindset shifts that helped me really truly heal with food. This is my own personal experience, and some things you may or may not resonate with or agree with totally, and that's okay. And even though I'm a registered dietitian, I am not your personal registered dietitian, so just take this as entertainment and things that maybe you can talk about with your own dietitian versus like direct clinical advice. Just have to throw out the disclaimer there. And I feel like my point of view is not like super rigid on like perfect intuitive eating or perfect eating either. So I'm somewhere in the middle. So that's why I give that disclaimer, because I feel like some people might get mad at me for certain things. Who knows? It's the internet these days. You never know what someone's going to get mad about. All right, so let's jump straight into the key habits and mindset shifts that helped me heal with food. I didn't really like totally script this out, so we're just going off of some of my notes. So the first one that I have is not being perfect with food doesn't mean eating like, quote, garbage or going off the rails. Now, here's the one that I think might make some people upset because maybe a little bit of the language usage, and I really apologize for that. But here's what I mean. I think that sometimes when we identify with being like a perfect eater in that disordered eating mindset where it's like 100% rigid and perfect, it can be really hard to let go of that label and feel like you're going to the complete opposite extreme of the spectrum. You feel like you're going from perfect to just this total piece of garbage, eating terribly, eating horribly. And I'm speaking to the eating disorder mindset, not to actually like say that you are garbage, because you are an amazing human and deserve so much more than that eating disorder voice. But that is just probably, I assume, what's also going on in your head too when you make this transition. And I think that it can be really triggering to go from one end to the other. It can almost make things worse to feel like you have to eat, quote unquote, poorly to heal your relationship with food. I think there has to be a little bit more of like this moderate shift to, okay, I'm eating this way right now, but maybe I can be a little bit more lenient in my food. Maybe I can slowly start to integrate some of these foods that I was once restricting and have a little more moderation here. For some reason, that slow, gradual transition is what helped me really start to embody that intuitive eating mindset better than just going full force the opposite end of the spectrum. And just to be clear, I don't think anyone's truly trying to give the advice of just eat junk food, but I think sometimes with mindful eating and intuitive eating, we get the wrong impression, and maybe some people read intuitive eating incorrectly in some ways, and this can make it really hard to make that transition to an actual intuitive approach. So that was a really long way to say that intuitive eating isn't just eating like crap. And sometimes going slow and steady into that middle ground versus feeling like you're having some big jolt in identity can be less triggering and more helpful in the long term to stay true to your healing process and to stay on the recovery journey versus flip-flop back and forth and fall back into your restrictive tendencies. This leads me to mindset shift number 2, and that's the all foods fit mindset. This is one of the biggest game changers that helped me heal my relationship with food. And like we kind of alluded to in the first tip, I think sometimes people think that if you allow yourself to eat all foods, that you'll just completely go off the rails and that you are no longer a healthy person. You are just eating junk all the time. This is so far from the truth. One of the things that I think has a huge impact on like emotional eating and binge eating is just that mindset of I can't have this food, and then you end up fixating super hard on that food. It's all you can think about. I remember in high school, I would spend all day long thinking about food, and I'm not even exaggerating. Every second of my day was consumed by thinking about food, and that's because I was eating probably about 800 calories or less a day sometimes. I don't condone that by any means. That is something that I feel really ashamed for now, knowing what I know and knowing how little 800 calories is. So please do not repeat that. But that's just an example of what can cause that preoccupation with food, which makes your health worse, not better. And I can absolutely make another video dedicated to this, but essentially when you allow all foods to fit into your diet, maybe a little bit at first, you will find that you eat a little more ice cream or eat a little more of the quote unquote junk foods that you once restricted. That's a normal part of the process. But what eventually happens when you allow yourself those foods is they no longer really have that hold over you. They don't have control over you, and you end up eating them a lot more moderately, naturally, without having to think about it. I don't want to discount how there is definitely a process to that, and I highly recommend working with a dietitian while you are doing this, just to work through any of the thoughts and feelings that come up when you habituate foods that you once restricted, because it can be tough, but it is definitely worth it in the long run for a healthier relationship with food. Number 3, more of a habit that helped me heal with food is flexible meal prep. So what this might look like for you is, for example, cooking some ingredients versus cooking specific meals in specific portions. I know sometimes with disordered eating, it can show up in that like macro kitchen type category where you're like having these beautifully meal prepped meals in these little bento boxes, and then you're left hungry afterwards because it doesn't take into account your day or how hungry you are in that moment or how much you exercised. So I like to prep ingredients like you can do brown rice or vegetables or cut up fruits, beans, chicken, things like that ahead of time. And then you can decide in the moment, what portions do I feel are right for me? What food do I actually want to eat? What am I hungry for in the moment? You're able to be a lot more flexible than if you just pre-prep every single meal of every single day all week long. It doesn't really allow that flexibility. Hello. What do you want, sir? He just wants the attention. Don't mind Kovu. His tail's just gonna bob up and down like it does in every single Zoom meeting I've ever had in my life. Mindset shift number 4 is shifting perspective from what is the most healthiest, low-calorie food to what will give me the most energy. This one is really big for me, and I think it's one of the key perspective and mindset shifts that helped me. Food is not just calories. Of course, food is made up of calories, which essentially, in an essence, is just an energy equivalent or an energy measure. That's all a calorie is. But there's so much more to enjoyment of food and to the nutrition that food offers you than just calories alone. So if you had a Pop-Tart, I always like to call out Pop-Tarts. I am not hating on Pop-Tarts, it's just the first thing that comes to my mind. A Pop-Tart may be around 200 calories and gives you short-term energy, but not really long-term, like not more than an hour or so. You're probably gonna feel hungry about an hour later. But maybe something else like a cup of Greek yogurt is around 100 calories, but it gives you more energy, you feel better, and it also has some protein in there to round out your hunger levels. That's an example of how I view foods differently. It's not that I don't have the Pop-Tart ever and that I hate on the Pop-Tart or think it's this evil thing. It's more so that I'm choosing the food that I feel will give me the most energy in exchange for eating it. And that helps me make decisions for my body that are productive and healthy, while also not having this guilt and shame cloud around every decision that I make. Again, sometimes you may choose the lower nutrient dense food because that's what you feel will give you energy and joy in the moment. But more times than not, you will probably naturally lean towards those whole food based things because that's just what is gonna feel good for you 70 to 80% of the time on average. Let me know in the comments section below, what are some of your favorite snacks that give you energy during the day? I'm curious to know, and also I'm kind of hungry, so I want to know what snacks you guys are choosing because I need to shake up my snack routine. All right, mindset shift number 5, we have health over weight. Deprioritizing weight as the most important part of my health, essentially ditching the scale. And this is not to hate on anyone who uses the scale as like one measure of health. I actually have an upcoming article that I'm writing for GoodRx on how often should you weigh in? What's the perfect number? And trust me, as you can probably imagine, it's more of a nuanced answer. So I'll have to leave it in the description below when I publish that article. But this shift is really another huge one for me because I used to weigh in every single day, and I remember how much of an effect it had on my mental health when my weight would go up or I would be over a number that I felt was good for me. It never was a good relationship, and I really haven't weighed myself in years. Actually, I mean, I've weighed myself a couple times over the last few years. The only time that I really started to weigh in at the doctor's office was during my pregnancy, and I'll even say then that there was a little bit of triggering moments there where I almost like got that adrenaline rush again of weighing in. I got excited, which for me is not a positive thing, unfortunately. So I ended up at the end of my pregnancy just like turning around when I stepped on the scale because I just felt like knowing the number was not doing me any favors. We just wanted to know the number for pregnancy tracking purposes. So all of that to say, your weight is so many different things. It is your inter and extracellular fluid. It's your bones, your muscle tissues. It's a little bit of fat mass too, but there are so many other factors that go into weight fluctuations from day to day that I just don't feel like it's beneficial to obsess over the number too much. It's one teeny tiny aspect of your health, but there are a lot of other factors like what you're actually doing in your day to day that matter so much more. So don't get caught up on this number. Make sure that you give yourself some grace, even if you do weigh in occasionally, and measure things like how often you're exercising, how often you're meal prepping, actions versus habits. And I have another video on that too. I'll leave that in the comment section below of why weight is not a good measure of success. Number 6 is giving my brain something to do, like a healthy habit to occupy it, like a hobby or a passion project or other things. Obviously, my YouTube channel has been a big part of that because I've always kind of been someone that needs to stay busy with things, or else I get really anxious and bored and just like existential with it. Like I have to have something that I'm striving for, which probably a correlation there between the perfectionism tendency and need for productivity and disordered eating tendencies, but nonetheless, we're reflecting on that. But I do feel like to some degree it is healthy to occupy your mind. I mean, I think this is true for addictions of any sort, and I kind of consider disordered eating a little bit of an addiction. Any of my psychology experts, let me know in the comment section below if that is true, if there's like a little bit of like brain connection between addiction and disordered eating. But I think it's important to have something once you are in the healing process and healing your relationship with food to occupy your time that's not food related. Something that is external of that. For me, this is not just my YouTube channel. Another thing that helped me with this is like really getting into my fitness routine. Fitness has been very healing for me. It was once also something that I felt more addicted to, and now I feel like I have a much more positive relationship with it, and it's an outlet for me. I also paint my nails multiple times a week, and I'm really obsessed with like nail colors and just the act of painting nails is really soothing for me, so that's another self-soothing method that I feel is pretty relatively healthy. Let me know what yours are in the comment section below. I know some of you may be painters or more artistic and have other hobbies and things that are healing for you. So give us your ideas in the comment section below. And finally, number 7, I'll read this one verbatim because when I wrote it down, I really, really felt it in my heart. The thing that kept me rooted in my recovery time and time again is reminding myself that I am worthy of a happy, healthy life. And I knew once I got to that point in recovery that I knew I wanted to heal, I knew that I deserved a longer, bigger, louder existence than just succumbing to the dark hole of my eating disorder, as my cat is literally eating my feet. But I'm sorry if that's not like super sunshine and rainbows, but I think that that is what it comes down to ultimately, is that you have to know deep within your heart that you are worth the time and energy to heal, and you are worth more than measuring your calories and your macros and obsessing over every little health decision every day. It's important to work on your health and strive for better health without obsessing. So I hope these tips helped. Let me know if you have any questions in the comment section below, or any thoughts or experiences of your own that you want to share. And let me know what topics you want to hear on the channel in the future. I thank you so much for being a part of this channel, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.